I didn't intend on doing another video as soon as I will be doing, but the Sprinkles guy has responded again, and while they've shown their true colours, they've been even more disrespectful than they have done before, and I'm just gonna go through all of the things they've said in the comments, because Jesus Christ, they've said a lot. And they've also mocked me for stuttering, which is something I can't control, and also the fact that I'm autistic. Like, he even used the R word. And another thing, he came out and said he was a paedophile, which I didn't know. I just thought he just supported them. I had no actual indication that they were a paedophile, but let's get into it. So this guy is trying to say that paedophilia and zoophilia isn't a paraphilia, but the definitions he gave, I don't really care what he's saying, because according to the Oxford Dictionary, a paraphilia is a condition characterized by abnormal sexual desires, typically involving extreme or dangerous activities. So he doesn't think that raping a child is dangerous or abnormal, or having sex with a dog isn't dangerous or abnormal or extreme. Like, what is this guy's problem? So, I just read what he said. He's saying that zoophilia isn't atypical because another species having sex with another species isn't irregular, but if it or unnatural. But if it wasn't, then why can't they procreate? And before you say something like gays can't procreate, that's just because they have the same sexual organs, and like it's completely natural for humans to have attractions to other consenting humans that are of the same age or very similar. Like, so for example, like someone that was 16 could date someone that's 17. Like, even though that's older, it's not unnatural. So, and this is a continuation on what's just been said. This guy's trying to try to say that the definition of what he believes in is just shitty, but it's not my fault his perversion falls under the definition. And if I don't know what he wants me to say to that. Also, he also says that why would it matter to me if zoophilia was a sexuality, which it isn't by definition of sexuality. Like, people are calling it a sexuality and they're trying to get into the LGBTQ community. Like, they can't. They're like, the definition doesn't fit in, and the LGBTQ community doesn't want them. And furries do not want them, as there was another comment thread from Nikki Mallows, who I've spoke to on Discord. She's actually quite friendly. She also has a YouTube channel. I'm gonna link in the description. Go subscribe. I don't really know. I don't normally do shout outs. Okay, on to the next point. Well, the problem with this statement is, if you just go up to a random person and kiss them, not even if you like that person, that doesn't mean you consented. Like, you can enjoy something but not consent to it. Like, the same way you can consent to something and not enjoy it. Like, I really don't get what your point is there. Also, animals, as I've said plenty of times before, they don't receive pleasure from having intercourse. Like, I don't know what the percentage is, but there's a very few amount of animals, apart from humans, that actually do enjoy it. So for this next point, I have to disagree. If humans were to not be able to think at all, literally they couldn't think, as if they were brain dead or something, they wouldn't be able to consent. Like, consent isn't it's a brain thing. Okay, so you're clearly delusional, because throughout my entire life, every single child I've ever met, because I'm only 16, I remind you. Like, I finished high school a year ago. Children are immature. Like, granted, obviously they can mature at different levels, but at the end of the day, they're still immature. you just don't want to admit it because you want to get away with grooming children and to potentially have intercourse with them, I'm assuming. Because no child actively wants to have intercourse. Like, they shouldn't even know about it. Like, that comes, like, people start to learn about that kind of stuff when they're heading into adolescence or puberty, as I've said before. So, you have no right talking to a child about it. And not even a teenager. Like, there's laws for a reason, and it's not bigoted or whatever you think it is. It's it's fair on the children because their opinion matters the most. For this point, I did a little search, and to a degree, maturity can be related to intelligence. However, emotional maturity isn't. And another thing, apparently, there's been a study showing that apparently smarter children, so meaning more intelligence, they like develop, like, it takes longer to develop for them. Which in turn means the smarter a person is, the longer it takes for them to develop maturely. Okay, new point. Why would a child need to learn that at that age? Like, isn't that, don't you, like, do you not think that is inappropriate? Like, do you, I'm trying to grasp your way of thinking because to me it's just entirely idiotic. But then again, you're coming from a very biased point of view, and I'm just trying to understand, but clearly you're just some creepy nonce. Also, I don't believe people need to be 18 to have sex. Like, I think the bare minimum is 16, though. That's like pushing it. Like 17, that's okay, just as long as protection's used, because no one should really be having children at that age, because, I mean, it's a big responsibility, and children that age probably don't even, I mean, they only have a part-time job. I mean, and that's even assuming, well, let's assume it was a 26-year-old man or something and a 17-year-old girl. If she got pregnant, who knows if the man's going to support her. So, like, there's a lot of things that come with it that I'm pretty sure you're not even considering. And for this point, you're telling me things I already know. Like, it's blaringly obvious that a child isn't going to support a paedophile if they've, like, abused them or, like, just done stuff with them. And I'm pretty sure I stated this in, like, the video I made yesterday, but I said that the child may not say that they were raped because they don't want to be hurt. Okay, so what you're describing here isn't consensual, it's statutory rape. And, like, how the law affects that, at some points it can be deemed as unreasonable if, well, I think that point was made clear in a TV program I watched, like, at some point. I think, like, one person was, like, 18, the other was 17, or something similar to that. And to me, if there's barely any difference, like within a year difference, it shouldn't be considered as rape. However, like, a year or more, unless it's above the age of consent, of course, it shouldn't be considered, like, statutory. It shouldn't be considered rape. But if it's something like 5 or 10 years and the person you're sleeping with is still in school, then that's messed up. I mean, first of all, with this point, I'm kind of surprised because you support paedophilia, which is rape. And, well, to me, that's just really surprising considering the fact that, well, the fact that you support raping children. But you're gonna say that you don't because you don't want to be arrested. Okay, this point is just it absolutely does. Else the body wouldn't go through puberty and people would just be born ready to do it. Like, we wouldn't need to develop if we were just ready. So your point is just dumb. I mean, for instance, like, during, like, puberty and stuff, the body develop, like, for instance, the men, like, the testes drop, and women actively start producing estrogen and the estrogen, whatever it's called. Like, the body isn't ready from when they're born, and it takes years to develop after, like, when they start to go into their teen years. So, like this, you're just wrong about this. So I may be speaking not in the order that these comments were sent in, but that's because when I initially started recording, they weren't in the, like, some of the comments didn't show up. So, like, I'll be going in the order of the new comments and the old comments. So you can call me a bigot all you want. I don't really care because I know I'm not a bigot. Like, like the majority of the people on Earth are against paedophiles. Would you say that that they're all bigoted? And would you say that everyone who's against zoophiles are bigoted? Because that's a lot of people too. Because you're this isn't like homosexuality, which I know a lot of zoophiles like to compare themselves to, like, oh, well, gays used to be hated worldwide, but the difference is it was between two consenting adults, whereas this, depending on the scenario, if it was like an 18-year-old and a 16, 17-year-old, like that's unreasonable. But if you're like in your 20s and you're talking to teenagers, then you really shouldn't. Well, you shouldn't be doing that. And before you mock me again for stuttering, I can't help it. So, I mean, I'm assuming you have to be an adult if you're a paedophile. Like, that's just extremely irresponsible of you to just make fun of someone for not being able to, like, do something they can't control within themselves, like in their biology. I can't control stuttering. I guess it's kind of like a nervous response because, like, how I want to say things, it just doesn't come out that way. And the fact that you're, like, insulting me about it is just immature of you, considering you are an adult as well. I mean, if that's not a direct quote, you're taking what I've said out of context. But if it is, I misspoke, because paedophiles are a group of rapists. There's a difference between, like, homosexuals and furries because they're entirely different groups. As an example, furries, like, furries are just people that basically, I wouldn't say pretend, but I guess it basically is pretending to be a character that's an animal, which isn't raping a child. And homosexuality, that, granted, you can have gay paedophiles, however, like, the majority of gay people want to be in a relationship with another a consenting adult, assuming they're an adult. Like, if it was a teenager, then another teenager. That's like the same age. Granted, if a paedophile wasn't planning on having sex with a child and still in a relationship, like, grooming still happens. Like, a child doesn't actively seek out a relationship unless it's like with another child, which even that's still unlikely. Okay, I don't remember saying if you don't abuse a child, because there's various different types of abuse. I don't know if you're aware of that, such as emotional abuse, mental abuse, physical abuse, verbal abuse. Like, and sexual abuse. There's a lot of different types of abuse, and, like, children aren't emotionally, like, mature enough for relationships. And yes, you can say it's like generalizing, but, like, I mean, it's true. Children do lack, like, emotional maturity, and, like, and a relationship is emotionally and mentally abusive, and in some cases it could be physically and verbally abusive. Okay, so you're saying that if a person grooms someone and let's just say someone can't, like, in this very unlikely scenario, that they're gonna groom someone into saving the world because they're doing it for them, because they physically can't do it, and for some reason this other person can. You're saying that that person isn't being used. And by the way, grooming is still grooming. It's still bad. Like, no matter what its intent is, it's still grooming. Okay, so I'm recording on a new date, and I'd like to know where you got your information from, because that just seems like a bunch of, like, bullshit to me. Okay, so for this point, like, first of all, grooming, in no matter what the scenario is still, like, grooming is still bad. And I don't know if you know what the definition of grooming is, but grooming is when someone builds a relationship with someone with, like, trust and, I guess, an emotional connection, and in this scenario with a child, so they can manipulate, exploit, and abuse them. So tell me how grooming is harmless, because as far as I'm aware, by the definition of grooming, there is no scenario where it's a good thing. Okay, do you think a child will be able to comprehend what a relationship, like that kind of relationship is? And do you think a paedophile has the self-control in order to not want to have a sexual relationship? I mean, I'm not the paedophile. Okay, so what you've just described here, that's not grooming, that's catfishing. And catfishing, from what I understand, is where people pretend to be someone else, mostly done to look like someone else if they don't find themselves attractive, which, like, not saying this is something that should be done, but bigger people tend to do it. But in this scenario, it's done where people try to catch paedophiles, which you are, and it's not a good thing because you exploit and abuse children sexually. And being groomed, like I've been groomed before on YouTube, it's not a pleasant thing. Well, when it happened to me, I was physically shaken. Like I was in school. Well, in terms of school years, it was year 6, but I don't actually know what that is in terms of age. I can't really remember. But as someone who has been groomed, it's not a pleasant thing to go through. So for you to say it's a harmless thing, it's kind of insulting. Okay, I just want to quickly say that last point is utterly stupid, because of course it's something. It's not an object. It's still a person. Just because they're not alive doesn't mean they're not a person. Like, you're dehumanizing someone for your own gain. Like, I don't know if you're a necrophile. It wouldn't surprise me. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if you were a zoophile alongside being a paedophile. And just because a person's dead doesn't mean they're an object. They were still a person. They they used to be able to consent and now they can't. That's like saying that you, like, having sex with an unconscious person is okay, which it isn't. Of course I know 98% isn't 100, you fucking mug. It's illogical to say that it's 100% because weirdly enough there are some people who do like it. And your point isn't valid. There is a very small and select minority of people that agree with you. There is probably less than 10 people that would like it. So your point doesn't stand, you fucking imbecile. Well, I wouldn't say making light-hearted, semi-satirical jokes like a wrong thing to do. Like, I could call you bigoted for calling me the arseler. That's something you used during your conclusion of this, and I that's something you shouldn't do, and I don't feel comfortable using the word. Like, when I was younger, I did, but like, I didn't. At that time, I didn't know I was autistic, and I didn't actually know what kind of the impact it did have on people. So just for you to say it casually is just wrong with you, and especially seeing as you're an adult, which is the only way you can be a paedophile. You you don't have, like, you should have the maturity to know not to say words like that. And honestly, it's just disappointing. The thing about Lusky, I don't know what point I made. It's just gone out of my head. But the main reason I talked about Alusky is it's the very start of all of this. Like, I wouldn't have known about you if I didn't make the video about Alusky, and I wouldn't have made a video about Alusky if he didn't come to my comments on a video unrelated to him. Like, all I did was make light-hearted jokes about zoophiles. Nothing serious. There wasn't anything wrong with that. So I don't see how you don't see the correlation. Like I was like this, I wouldn't have even heard of you. Like if someone said your username, I'd say, who's that? Like I'd have no clue who that would be. Okay, so to this, you still don't know me. I think I said it in the video, but if I didn't, you'll hear it here. Those are some of the things. Like there's a lot more other things. I'm only 16, by the way. This person's probably in his 40s or something, like some creepy nonce. Like for example, um, one of the last people that died close to me was the only person who actually treated me well for the first decade and a half of my life, and it took me 2 years to actually find someone else who could actually make me feel good about life. Like I was drawn to the point of almost killing myself for the second time, might I add. And for the first decade of my life, when I lived with my mum, I experienced both verbal and mental abuse, which was also a reason for me to that dragged me to the point of suicide. So please, tell me how your life is more depressing than mine, because I mean, like it's honestly pathetic of you to say that your life is more like depressing. Like I don't know what you go through, but I mean, I've had a smaller portion of life to you, and I've had a really bad life. So I'd just like to know how, like, in my time. I mean, you said you've had some of these things happen to you. You're you're like significantly older than me. My lifetime, I've had worse things happen in as compared to time. So I'd just like to know how your life is more sad. Okay, now for the conclusion. Okay, first thing, I have a relatively good idea of what I'm talking about. Second, I wouldn't consider myself a moron. I've proved to myself and my peers that I'm decently smart, and that's with being autistic. And I didn't get the big sad because you challenged my beliefs. Like, I don't care about you. I just made a video responding because I couldn't be bothered to type. And making fun of someone for stuttering, that's just so low of you. Like, I can't control it. Like, if there was something you couldn't control, would that give me the right to insult you? Like, that's just low and immature. And if I do repeat myself, that's just because I've forgotten what I said. Like, it's a completely natural thing to do. Like, I don't have a script that I follow. I do this, I read your thing, then I just say my response out loud. And my points aren't misunderstandings or plain stupid. If anything, you're the one that's plain stupid. Also, saying that you, in quotes, hate retards, end quote, is that's extremely ableist. And, well, I guess that would be my title, the ableist pedophile. That's an interesting, like, mix of things. You know, it's kind of funny. When you came to my comment section, in mine at least, you were quite disrespectful and supporting Aluski, of course, because you're his little bum buddy. But in one of his videos, you seemed kind of respectful, which I've always thought was weird. But now you've shown your true colours. You hate what you call retarded people. So that can include people with Down syndrome, autism, plenty ADHD. And you say we shouldn't try anymore? Like, you're judging me because of my autism. I just need you to think about what you're saying before you say it, because I have trouble thinking about that, like doing that. But according to this, you don't, like, unless you hate yourself, then you really should think about what you say before you do say it. But I will be reporting you to YouTube for being a paedophile and saying that, I mean, like, just being disrespectful to, like, people with like autism and ADHD and Down syndrome. Like, you have no right to say the things that you've been saying. because it's just downright disrespectful and it's unjust. But anyways, that will be it for this video. Not all of the comments have appeared because it says there's 44, yet I don't see 44. So I'll wait for your reply to this, or the other ones to appear on the other video.